All right, guys, exciting episode tonight. We are joined by Chris, as always, our podcast microbiologist. I'll be the middle school teacher. Craig is our tech expert and software engineer guy. Between the three of us, we can get on a ship to Arid tomorrow, I think.
Yes.
Ready.
Yes. Welcome, Craig.
Thanks. Happy to be here. Long-time fan.
Yeah, this is our second go around. We tried to we had on Atif to talk, Mike's coworker to talk the book, and we definitely want to hear from him. But these damn technical difficulties, we're still figuring it out. But anyways,
Yeah.
we got Craig here tonight. Love for you to just start out first impressions, what you did, what you didn't like. Then we can dive deep into like some of the nitty gritty.
Yeah. Sure. So, like, I'm fresh off of reading the book. Like, I finished on Sunday, saw the movie Monday. I thought, I figured, I did not think that Ryan Gosling, first off, was going to be the right actor for this role. Reading the book halfway through it, I was like, he's not going to be able to do this. That was my main concern. And I got into the theater, and he hit a good note of like goofy scientist, but not emotionally unintelligent, sensitive, but also like really, really capable. He was really the kind of person who would talk to themselves as they're trying to get something done. I thought, the casting was spot on, except for a few exceptions, which are kind of nerdy. But I thought that the story was well paced. I really liked the way that they introduced alien life. I loved that they had the whole voice selection. I loved the way that they animated, and I'd say animated in the sense of moving him around, move Rocky around. And I, just really liked just the way they put everything together. The stakes felt real, and that was one of the best things, or one of the most important things that we could have happen in the movie. And yeah, I definitely recommend it. In fact, I recommended it several times today at work. It's like, you guys got to get out there and see the movie so I can talk to you about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, this movie and book is very interesting. And like my wife, when she was at work, she mentioned, "Oh, my husband's going to this movie tonight." And she said, "Oh, what movie?" Project Hail Mary. I was like, "Oh, how is he going to go see it?" And I like, that doesn't come out till Friday, and so I had to explain to my wife how I was able to see this. But her coworker, like, who's not into sci-fi at all, but loved this book, has read it twice. Can't wait for this movie. She was bummed she missed out on the whole like early access screening. But I just feel like this book, while maybe it's just Andy Weir, he's good at this. I feel like The Martian was very much like that. I haven't read Artemis. That's going to be my next one, but I feel like he makes science pretty approachable. Science, physics, technology, and then I think that like I would recommend this to anybody. It's kid friendly. Like there's really no like swear words. There's no like they removed all the sexual elements that were in the book.
Good point. Yeah.
So like, but this book is just like it's a wholesome story about friendship and about understanding who you are, like as an individual, and overcoming like barriers and like I don't know. There's just so many things you could take away from this book. It's just like it's mind blowing.
Yeah, I can't agree more. It is a book, like we said in our book review episode, more about people than it is about aliens. It's more about humans and relationships. Yeah. And I think sci-fi could be a genre that has a barrier to entry for a lot of folks, thinking fantasy, fictional, made up, fake. It doesn't have any lessons to teach us. I think they're completely wrong, because it might use all of those elements as a medium to tell the story, but you're ultimately telling a story about the human condition. And this book does that so well that the movie now does it equally as good. And I think a big part of our conversation tonight is the book to movie adaptation. Clearly things had to change. Clearly a lot got cut. I think they did a little bit of tell, don't show, because if they decided to show the way Andy Weir showed in his writing, whether it's the science, the experiments, things about xenonite and just a whole host of things, building the ship with the gravity and the centrifuge, they had to kind of tell it in a really pithy, concise way. And so a lot of content got cut that Andy Weir wrote, but I think he'd be the first to agree it may not have worked in a movie. And if it was in the movie, it would have been way over 3 hours long. So the decisions they made to turn this book into a movie is phenomenal. As well done as, let's say, like a Harry Potter. I think Hogwarts, how they filmed it, and the characters and who they were, how they conducted themselves, was so close to what almost every reader had in their mind in the book. In the book, this one, what's fun is you might not have visualized it the same way. So the visuals, for example, for me, Rocky's ship was a little different than how I was picturing it.
Yeah.
So there
Well,
are
but
some things that
there's a
visually
reason for
look
that.
different. There's a reason for that, but we also, I think, had the essence of everything. The essence of everything as I read the book, the motivations, the characters, how the plot's driven, it was all there one to one, almost perfectly paced out as the book was. So many things were adapted for a movie, but captured the heart and the core of the book. And I think it's a phenomenal adaptation.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely think though that, and I'm sure we'll get into the minutia. You referenced The Martian. I think The Martian was, Andy Weir's big move into, script goes to Hollywood, right? And I feel like when I was reading Project Hail Mary, I felt like, okay, he had the experience. He took what was good about The Martian and like the super, well, to the layman, super dense science stuff, and then translated that, had that translated into the film. And I think that worked really well in Project Hail Mary. But, and I know you sort of glossed over it or alluded to it, Mike. I think, maybe at the expense of the discovery of science, like the small problem, small problem, small problem, small problem, victory, next level, and then on up. That would have been, kind of a grind in a movie. So yeah, but I think they did a really good job of translating it, and they focused on what essentially was like a buddy road trip movie, in space. So
yeah, which foils it with The Martian, because that message clearly was science the shit out of it. Like that was the main takeaway. And the movie captured, I think, a lot of the scientific experimentation to stay alive. This movie, I think, downplayed the science a little bit, gave it to you in quick little snippets just so you buy in. It was more about entertaining you than it was about educating you. And I think what that allowed is the Rocky Ryland friendship to have so much more screen time and play such more of a pivotal role. Where in the book, I would say the science might dominate more of the page time than their relationship.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice, right? And you have these two books that are very similar in this extent that they're someone lost at space trying to get somewhere, In The Martian, obviously, he's trying to get home or trying to survive until he can potentially get home. And this one, it's someone who's forced into something and trying to save the world. You have that like existential threat. There was no existential threat in The Martian, right? And one thing Mike did say to me last night, he felt like the existential threat like was there, but it wasn't super played up on. It at times maybe you couldn't feel it because of the dynamic that the relationship that Rocky and Ryland are trying to build. So, but for me, I think that the science maybe took a backseat. And, this is just me trying to Tuesday morning quarterbacking. But one, to distinguish itself between the two movies, right? All right, you have these two books that, they're not the same, but they do have similarities. And like, all right, let's distinguish our tone. And two, I do really think that the moral of this story is, like you said, the human condition, connection, sacrifice, being a hero when you don't think you are a hero. It's not the science. Well, the science in the book is so cool, and like the way that I think that's one of Andy Weir's like best ability is just like science communication, being able to, even though like I appreciate it even more, having a little bit more of that background. I'm not like I'm just a microbiologist. I'm not like an but like the biology aspect of it, I thought he got great. And the same thing in all the microbiology and molecular biology that he talks about in The Martian, like for me, that like rings out. It makes me feel good when people get that right.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think like here, all right, let's put that in the back seat because we want to elevate something else. We want to distinguish this as a little bit something different. We do have this existential threat of like everyone can die, that Ryland is going to die, that ultimately, like, he got forced to put in this position. He has to rise to it. And I was okay with that. I don't know. But like you said, this idea of headcanon, right? There's a lot of times where I've seen adaptations and, obviously you're right, Mike. I think like the Harry Potter series is probably I think most people would agree that like the best representation of an adaptation from a book to a movie. Like most people are okay, like to more than okay with those movies because how well they were executed and how close they got. Obviously, nothing's going to be 1-to-1, but a lot of times I find myself just getting pissed off when people make decisions when they're different than like what I had envisioned.
Yep.
Here, there was a lot. Yes, here there was a lot of differences than what I envisioned in my head, but I didn't find myself getting upset with them.
I agree. I agree.
I felt that their headcanon was just as cool to me that my headcanon was.
I was willing to give them grace because they prove themselves that they're doing it so well that it was okay if they changed something. Like Craig, you and I talked a lot last night. We got out of the movie about small things that were missing. Like we didn't learn a lot about the Beatles and how he was going to send the Beatles back, but they gave the fans the little flash of the 5 Beatles names.
The little egg, the Easter egg. Like you know what we're talking about.
Exactly. Same thing with the bar scene. You could be upset with the karaoke scene. I maybe have to get some reactions from that, but it was a nod to show the relationships.
You're setting me off too early.
We said they cut the sexual tension. I think that was just enough to show you, if you know the book, you know there are deeper things going on.
You mean between Dubois and Shapiro?
Yeah, and
what a weird part of the book. I was wondering up until that moment, up until we got there, I was like, what are they going to do with them? And when it came down to it, Dubois wasn't weird enough. Yeah, I was like,
it was just enough. They did it just enough.
Yeah, they were like, okay.
Weirdest thing in the entire book, like the fact that they were like so freaking horny that but it's for comic relief, right? So
I think it was comic relief, and the movie was already doing enough humor, which one of my slight hot takes is about that. But I also think if you ignore any sort of sexual tension and you're planning a long multi-year space mission, you kind of miss the point. Part of human psychology is that's going to play a role no matter what you try to do in control. So there has to be like a slight nod to it. But also you don't want to have to write erotica or anything crazy off the mark. So handling it in a humorous way via the book was really smart, and handling it here with a little let off the steam at the bar, singing karaoke, everyone's letting their hair down, also a good way to just have a nod to it and keep the thing moving. So it's a small change that I give the screenwriters, credit for. Not including it, but also not completely ignoring it. But Craig, what pissed you off about the karaoke scene the most?
Okay. All right. So we're just going to go directly to it.
Let's get them going.
I've been thinking about it all day. Let me be diplomatic about it. While I appreciated the way that they treated the character of Ava Stratt in the movie, I thought the actress who played it was great. I thought, in fact, I'll even say, I really appreciated the way that that actress portrayed the emotional precipice that she was on. She was still in charge. She was still, willing to do anything, but you could very much see how things weighed upon her, and in that scene in the trailer, when she had to where she essentially sentences Ryland to death, at least in his mind, they did a thing, right? In the book, he walks into an office like, what's this big guy here for? And then he holds him, and then they take him away, etc. And then she talks to him later. I don't even think that scene should happen. In the book, she reads him for Phil. She says, look, I like you. I don't respect you very much. You are going to do this thing. It's too bad you didn't say yes, but whatever. But she kind of tells him off. She a little bit comes back later, says, hey, I should explain to you why I'm doing this. And then he's like, go to hell. It's like, oh, we're going to hell. In the movie, you can see how much it pains her. There is the karaoke scene where, as you pointed out last night when we were talking about this after the movie, Mike, you were correct in that character was affected by Ryland in a way that was sort of like bringing her softness and emotion out. You could see how much it pained her to do the thing. She was very upset about it. And after everything, kicked off and, the Beatles came home, she got to learn about what happened. In my head, Ava Stratt, they included the scene in the book about, her going off against the copyright, basically people who owned all the software copyrights are like, hey, we want our money. She's like, no. She fought everybody. Everybody was subject to her prerogatives because she was the one who was anointed with the responsibility to save the world. And she's willing to do whatever, work with whomever, get anything done. And, whatever affection she had for Ryland was also paired with, like, you're useful. Yeah, I do kind of like you, but you have the right coma resistance. You know how to work with this stuff. You're kind of expendable, and we needed somebody to work with it within 3 days before we got the real people in on it. You figured out how to get, how to breed them, so you were good then. You have to now get on this ship. Like, you were always subject to the import of the mission. And in fact, she herself, I'm sorry, I'm going off about this. She herself knows that when all this is said and done, the governments of the world are most likely going to turn on her and put her in prison for life. And in my mind, that's what happened to her. She doesn't know what happened to Ryland. She doesn't, get justice. She does what she does. And as a student of history, she understands that she's actually just she's sacrificing herself in much the same way that everybody else is. In the film, everyone got the comfort of knowledge. Ryland, he understood that Earth was saved, which is what happened in the book. In the movie, he was able to send video of himself. He introduced an alien race to Earth, or at least to Ava Stratt, which I think was a terrible idea. But yeah, suffice it to say, I'll stop talking. I'll take a sip of water after this. But honestly, I'm thinking about it. Ava Stratt, who, basically, was the head of every room, who controlled every government, at least for a limited time, and who had no problem, sending people to their deaths for the greater good, not because she enjoyed it, but because she knew that it had to be done based on the precedent of history, is the one I prefer. That being said, having said all that, before I get to the sip of water, I will say that I understand that it's a movie, and it's a movie being shown. If you saw a woman doing what the Stratt in my mind was doing, I don't think that test audiences would have liked it very much. To be honest, I don't know if I would have liked it very much. And I don't know if I love that, but it's true. And I think they wanted to make more of an emotional connection as well between the characters. As you've pointed out, there is no sexual tension, or not real sexual tension in the movie. This is about relationships, but not about that. So there had to be an injection of real human feeling and connection. And outside of the bromance that they were showing on the ship or ships, this is where it was shown. Also, we didn't really have he never had any connection to the crew, to Ilukina or to Yao. So anyway, that's my big thing. That's my hill that I'm going to die on. Bring back book Stratt.
No, I think that's great. It's a good question about, like, sure, that's probably the biggest change between the book and the movie, other than like cuts, like ultimate decisions that you have to make for runtime.
Right.
In terms of changing fundamentally who Ava Stratt is. And I do agree with you that I think it's a little bit of a decision to soften her, to make her a little more palatable to viewers, because they, you did a great job explaining like who this person is. She's been going over
it the whole day.
She's almost like like you were describing, like Hitler, but like for good. Like
yeah.
Yeah,
that's perfect. That is it. She was like, what do I got to do? Dictator. Let's go.
I don't know if that would have gone that well, but I do think they towed a good line of capturing a little bit of that in terms of her, very serious. She only shows like one little crack during the karaoke scene of like having some emotion. I love the little quips. Like the line. I still think about it when it's in the book too. It's straight from the book, but. When he's like, you picked me to come in here to die, like you want me to die, right? And then she turns around, you have to discuss this.
We prefer you stay alive.
The consensus in the room is that we would prefer you stay alive. I think they did a good job of capturing the essence of what Andy Weir put into that character. But I do ultimately think that if you were to take just straight that character from the page, it would have been maybe a little bit of a drag.
Hot take incoming.
Hot take incoming.
Hot take.
Yeah, I just, I don't know. I feel like, sorry, I've said enough.
Hot take counterpoint to your hot take.
Yeah, please.
I bit my tongue, as Chris can tell you. I rarely do. I rarely do on this podcast.
You never do.
No, I held my tongue. I'll put it that way. Strat was the best part of this movie. Strat stole the show. The decisions and the dialogue and the screenwriting for Strat was perhaps the single best thing to me in this movie. Now, that being said, before I break down why, yes, Rocky and Ryland, they stole the show. Yes, Rocky and Ryland, and the way they had the puppeteers, and they built this bond, and they brought everyone to tears, and you're weeping, and but here's the thing. I expected that, right? Like, if the movie's even going to be half good, that has to be a 10 out of 10. It has to be perfect. And so they rose to that bar. They met, they rose to the occasion. They met that bar. So kudos to them. The only thing is, I think I kind of expected that. And in the trailers, I almost was like, they got Strat completely wrong. This woman does not have the on-screen presence. She doesn't have the balls, the gravitas. I was like, oh no. I was like, oh no. So maybe it's because I went in with high expectations for Ryland and Rocky. I went in with low expectations for Strat. That sitting in the theater, I was blown away by her performance of it and how they crafted her to make her human. But I don't think they sacrificed anything about her dedication to the mission. I don't think they sacrificed anything about her willingness to use authoritarian rule and be the leader the world needs. Fuck all else. Like, nothing else matters right now. I'm in charge. I thought they captured that brilliantly right off the bat when she takes him and she's forcing him to do the testing, and he's in the lab working, and she is like the conductor of an orchestra behind her of every top brass in the world. Every military is literally there listening to her, will not move a muscle, won't lift a finger if she even so much as looks at them. And she is commanding presence. She's a commanding presence everywhere she goes. And when I saw her in a trailer, I was like, oh, hell no, she's not going to be able to do that. But then the first second she was on screen, just her face told me, oh, she's going to do this. And she did it.
Sandra Muller, casting her was very good. I thought that was a very good casting.
I agree. And then the cracks, though, because you're right. I'm not going to disagree with anything you said. The writing from the book was a little softened. They made her a little more human. And I think it's such a brilliant move. And if I felt they did that and sacrificed the mission before self, mission above all else, if I thought they sacrificed that in any way, I would have had a problem. I don't think they did. I think they did both. And it was captured when she was basically forcing him onto the ship in her office, and they had that conversation. Her face played it perfectly. And then a line like, one day you will see I'm doing this because I care about you. And to me, that decoded the whole thing. The whole thing was she's going to be this hard ass because she cares so deeply about people. She might be one of the highest EQ and emotionally intelligent people in the film. And she has to be somebody who has zero EQ in the moment. And the lessons of leadership from that, I think, are really, really deep. That's the kind of person, you'll go to war for. You will follow into battle. Because as hard as they are on you, they come off like a complete asshole. One, they're so invested in the mission, and they're so invested in you personally, and there's so much belief and there's so much care behind it, that I think they capture that so well. And then to give her the little crack of singing the song, but then turning it off.
No, for the movie, that was fine. For the movie, that was fine.
I'm going to push back. I don't think that we got a lot of that in the book. I think that was all added.
I think I'm okay with that. Yeah.
You're okay with that. Okay.
I think there were little glimpses of it in the book that you had to really look for. I think she cared desperately about the people that she was sending. I don't think she sent people to their death
the world
flippantly. She didn't send people she cares about the world, yes, but she didn't send people to their death flippantly. She was in a situation forced to say, you have to die. I'm sorry, you have to die. But deep down behind that is not just an asshole who doesn't care about your life. She cares deeply about your life, and she's just putting it in perspective. And I thought they handled it. I think Andy Weir very much would approve of what they did with her, and that's just my opinion.
No. I think he would have, but I think he would have because he understands movies now. I think Strat understood and cared about life and human life in particular. I don't think she cared so much about individual people, which is, you've also worked for that guy or woman, right? And that's also fine, depending on how what the job is. In this case, the job was, and you guys talked a little bit about this in your podcast about the book. The stakes are so high, right? She knew from her knowledge of history. The big reveal for me at the end of the book is that she's actually a student of history, and she knows what has to happen. She knows that there will be purges and famine, and that countries will just not be able to hold it together. It's a miracle that they were even doing this much, right? What was missing, and I think it was not necessary in the movie, but I liked it, and I don't know what this says about me, but I think that there was a level of contempt that Strat had for Ryland's situation, and that wasn't necessary in the movie. Part of the reason is that what she did to him in the book was to purposely give him selective memory recovery. And this is maybe leading into maybe one of the big differences between the book and the movie. In the movie, there isn't, he's gone through the coma, but he doesn't have a specific French government derived drug that, is giving him reveals of memory. So he's understanding himself through recollection. In the movie, he knows himself. He understands that he sees himself as a coward. He talks about that repeatedly in the movie. And when it comes down to the time, he's like, no, I'm not qualified. I'm not an astronaut, much the same thing. But he understands all that. It's us who are being, we're getting the revelation of this is what preceded that. So when he wakes up on the ship, he knows everything. The reason he doesn't know the crew that well is because he never got to know the crew that well. They weren't his friends. He didn't know Yao very well. He didn't know Ilukina very well. In the book, he just, he has feelings for them, but he can't remember why. So, one thing, sorry, leading away from Strat, but kind of going into a sort of a narrative difference here.
I think that's a good point, because it's obviously a big shift. And I think that it's hard, kind of like The Martian. These books are both very, they live inside the main character's head for a large portion of it. And it's how do you capture that on screen? And I felt that obviously I knew they were going to have to make some changes. They made it some subtle nods to it. When he first wakes up, he's like, why do I know that's a scanning electron microscope? So obviously you can tell that he is not. But yeah, no, I got the sense right away that and they purposely cut out the tight relationship that he develops with the entire crew.
No Dimitri.
Because they had to, they had to cut some time, and that was a decision. And I think that for me, as a book reader, that is probably my biggest, not ding, but just the biggest thing I was upset about, because I like that dynamic. I thought that, once he remembers everything about Yao and then everything about Ilukina, that's a big reveal for us as a reader. And it brings some emotional clarity, that because him putting them out to, giving them a funeral is not as quickly in the book as it is in the movie. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
there's a few positives to this choice, though, because you could be disappointed. We can say the age old, oh, they didn't include everything from the book. So I'm digging the movie for that.
I know you can't. So
you can do that, but I think that's the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because if they tried to do this as some psychodrama, fuzzy memory loss, and then the memories come back to you slowly, and that's just, I think, them imposing a story on you as the audience and on the plot. Instead, they let their pacing walk the walk. They said, we're going to cut back and forth between scenes and just let that speak for itself. We don't need to didactically instruct you. He has this memory loss. Strat programmed it that way. She knew coming out of the coma, if he remembered everything right away, he might go crazy and cancel the mission. If he remembered he was a coward, if he remembers his relationship with the crew who died, because some of you are going to die waking up from this coma, most likely, statistically. So I think if you tried to explain away all the psychodrama of what memories he had, I think it wouldn't work. And it makes me think of another series. We did another book to TV show adaptation. The book did not have much of this fuzzy memory loss thing as much, but the TV show laid into it so heavy. Everything in the movie was a fuzzy flashback. Is it a false memory? Can you trust the narrator? And it really didn't land because it almost made everything too murky, and you didn't know who was real, what was going on. It's like, we didn't need it to be that kind of Shutter Island or something, like we're not playing this whole memory schizo game. So I was glad it was just like, he slowly came back to the memories. He slowly became more confident. And like 20, 30 minutes in, we're caught up to speed. He's at his best. He's a scientist. He knows what he needs to do. And he's got to figure out how to live on the ship. Like,
because in the book that doesn't happen probably until like two-thirds. Like, he doesn't become fully who he is until like well after he meets Rocky. Like, well after he meets Rocky.
Well, I was going to say, at least they captured that, because if you move away from that and then you neglect the exact timing, where Andy Weir timed it perfectly, so did the screenwriters, when you learn that he said no to the mission. It's like 3/4, 80% through, you learn he backed out, he weaseled out, he literally ran for his life. I think that was a cheap gag, but anyway.
The fact that he literally ran out of there. And
he really ran out of the office. Yeah.
Which was funny.
It was funny. Was it the time to be
talk
funny?
About the increase of humor.
Yeah, but just to put a bow on it, you had to capture the fact that Rocky was just calling him brave. Like, he was like, Ryland Grace, the bravest person I know, like the greatest human I know, which was another funny joke. I'm the only human you know. Great. That humor landed for me. But you had to capture the fact that right when Ryland was grappling with, am I a coward, a loser, a failure, at the same time as Rocky putting all of his trust in him and saying, I'm inspired by you. Like, Rocky had to be inspired by him, or else maybe they wouldn't have come as far as they did. And Ryland's like, is that fake? Is that the real me? Or was the real me when I...
What did you guys think about the fact that they did hold true to the fact that Rocky saved Ryland? But in the book, he turned right around and saved, and then nearly killed Rocky. And there's that whole incubation period where he's working on stuff while Rocky's out. But, Ryland sustained injuries. He, constantly did really brave things on the ship. When he was with Rocky or without, he got hurt. He put himself in dangerous situations. And they showed a little bit of that in the movie, but it felt like it was such a big reveal in the book that you knew that he didn't want to die. But the fact that he basically had to be essentially hogtied and, thrown into the ship. And like, she planned it all out that he was going to, he'd wake up, they'd be like, oh, we'll help you do this mission and blah, blah, blah. What did you think about the fact that like Ryland didn't end up saving Rocky? Like, Rocky did the saving, and that was sort of that.
That might be my biggest disappointment of the film is the action sequence.
It was a little murky. It was a little murky. Like, it didn't quite, obviously it's a huge moment when Ryland passes out and then Rocky decides to like essentially sacrifice him. He's willing to sacrifice himself to save Ryland. And I don't know if it's just the fact that like, we couldn't get into too much of the details of, Rocky's biology or, that kind of stuff. Mike, last night you kind of mentioned to me that you thought it was kind of weird how Ryland just kind of moved on and felt that, like, does he think Rocky's dead? Does he think Rocky's going to come back? Is he just in a coma? Like, I think, if you know in the book that Rocky undergoes these long and very precisely exact periods of resting time, you can kind of like, oh, all right, he just needs like an extra long rest, and that's going to be like we don't know when it's going to happen because, who knows Iridian like resting time. I don't know if they were trying to play it up that to make you think that Rocky died and that,
I don't know.
Ryland
Yeah.
needs to continue on no matter what, just, make this sacrifice and not be in vain, that kind of thing. That
I don't
it was a
know.
little murky there.
Yeah, I think so. I think
yeah.
yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you hit the nail on the head there, Chris, because I honestly was in that chair thinking, "Holy shit! I think they might have just killed Rocky." I really thought for a flash across my mind, I thought that might be the change. Is like I know they're going to need some sort of dramatic change from the story just
Right.
to keep even book readers interested. I was like, did they go that bold? So at first I'm like, let me see how this plays out. I might actually like this if there's some heavy stakes consequences. If they're like going whole hog into the stakes of Rocky sacrificing himself to save Ryland, ergo save both their species.
Right.
I'm like, whoa, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's see what happens. And no, they just decided it's a long rest and a nap, and he'll just wake up with no.
He was moving.
It got rid of the consequences.
He was moving a little bit. He was moving a little bit after he, right after Ryland got up. Rocky was still moving like a little bit, and then he collapsed. So it's kind of
so
like,
did Ryland
I don't think
just need to put the glass up, just one pane of glass, and then all of a sudden he made a xenonite bubble and everything's fine.
So that was another. Okay, all right. So now you're entering into we're entering now fully into how does science work in movie, because
it was hand wavy.
Okay, it was very yes.
It was very jazz handy.
It was positive. It was yes. So So several things, right? How did, and you sort of explained it last night, Mike, but how did Rocky kick out of his little ball, right? If that's xenonite and then ostensibly the connections are very strong as well, can you just kick it out? I know he's very strong. I know the pressure is big in there, but wouldn't that have been a bigger deal? When they were collecting samples near Adrian, like it took me a little bit out of it in the movie that it felt like stunts that you could do on the top of the Burj Khalifa, right? In Earth gravity, because if it would have taken us out of the movie if the suspense was, 2001 Space Odyssey action where you're floating around, science accurate. They had to have him falling, the collection bit flew over here and he had to like fly down. And yes, there was gravity on Adrian. Yes, it should have been pulling them in that direction, but all of the action was him falling. Similarly, when he got into the airlock several times, they did do it properly a few times, but in times of action, he just like jumped in things like there was gravity, when at those points there was not. These are small
at one
things,
point he like throws the ball in, and I was like,
yeah,
I was like, wait,
that was the moment. I was like, wait a minute,
there's that much gravity there? Like there's that much gravity?
No. The book made a huge, and again, I know it's a movie, but the book made a huge deal about like, these are the differing gravities. Look, I'm chilling at 1.5 and that's fine. So they didn't make it. They made not as big a deal about the pressure.
And then because like the Rocky's gravity is so different. Like that was the other like big thing. It's not just like the air and the ammonia. It's like the gravity was like a huge difference.
Right.
And just general pressure. The pressure, the pressurized air of the atmosphere that you have, which was the reason that Ryland should not have been able to go to the ship. Although I do appreciate what they did in the movie to show how Ryland could have gone on the ship.
So and this is, so you just read it.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, did he go to the ship? Because I thought he did.
It didn't happen in the book.
No, in the book, this is where I was a little bit hazy. That I was checking my memory in the seat while I was watching the movie last night. So at the end of the movie, not the end, but near the climax of the movie, where he goes to save Rocky, he doesn't enter, does he? He goes up to the outside. I think.
He attaches to the ship after his float. Yeah,
right,
after his Leia moment. Yeah,
exactly. But he never enters the
Princess
ship.
Leia.
Yeah, right. And so, Mike, you mentioned before how you liked the design of Rocky's ship, and I did too. It was very reminiscent of the little baubles that he created. Right. I don't know if that's what I saw in my head when I thought of his ship, but it kind of doesn't matter because we never got to see the inside of the ship, because there's no way, as far as we knew, that Ryland could actually get in there, and that was part of the problem.
So he didn't go in the book, but he did jump to it and was attached to the outside of it to signal to Rocky.
Yep.
I thought it was cool though to go inside, and it also, it was just an adventure. It was so cool to go inside another species ship. And then I thought it actually helped me buy into the ship, because I had the same thing. I was like, I don't recall Rocky's ship being described with particularly these long like spires and like so many of these pointy things just sticking out. And I'm like, what the heck is the purpose of these? So I was like, I'm just going to believe this is the ship because they must have some idea. But then when Rocky was on the ship, and it was almost like playing chords with those long strings, and because it's a sound-based species, the Iridians, all of those long, narrow structures are about frequency, amplitude, and sound waves. And maybe the ship like insulates sound waves or does something. Once we were in Rocky's ship and saw that the way they decided to build it was directly related to their language of sound, I was like, boom, that ship's stellar. Am I wrong? Rocky was like playing chords on his ship, kind of?
Yeah.
That was super cool.
As soon as they go in, like every single thing to me had a distinction of sound and music. And like, you know, because it's the species, the language is very tonal, right? It's all tonal. But to me, the thing that they got the most correct, and the thing that I think they had to get correct, was the arm on the outside, and like the, you know, especially when they first meet, and like the fact that this thing is able to grab anything, because we knew it had that, like, and that was like the big thing, and then that he could precisely then throw the stuff back and forth. You know, it's interesting. You brought up something about how Ryland is a coward, yet he does crazy things in this movie.
Sacrificial things.
You know,
like
just the fact of like, while being not fully there, right, not having these memory losses, and deciding to go on a spacewalk for the first time, you know, is insane, and to do it multiple times.
Well, that's
Rocky tells him, you're crazy.
But that's the brilliance of the line, though. You don't need just something to fight for or believe in. You need someone to fight for and believe in. And he found his Rocky.
What Yao said.
So that like he came full circle with his arc. So not to cut you off, Chris, but that line just hit when I realized it made perfect sense for where Ryland went from where he was when he backed out with Strat. If you think like time-wise, when he said no to Strat to where he comes at the end, it was all because of his friendship with Rocky that forced him to grow that way.
I think ultimately, you know, the decision for him to, you know, he can go home. Like he could have just sacrificed essentially the entire species of Iridians and gone home, saved himself, potentially, you know, doesn't know what could happen. But I think, you know, that's the beauty of the book, is him making that conscious decision to, all right, I can do both. I can't save myself, you know, because in that moment he has no idea that he's going to survive. He fully well expects that if I go back to save Rocky,
maybe I'm dead, and maybe I've doomed all of Earth. That was the other thing.
Exactly.
I would say that, okay, in the book and in the movie, there's a case, more so in the book, I would say, there's a case for Ryland being a more exemplary human that he understands. In fact, you mentioned something, not just about his cowardice, but also, you know, who he is. Well, like, actually, Carl said this to him as they were tying him up. He was like, you know who you are. You're going to be fine. And again, first off, before I say what I'm going to say, big up to Carl. You know, a character we weren't asking for, but, you know, we couldn't live without.
Carl was the man.
Really like Carl in the movie.
Loved Carl.
And I love that actor from the Bear.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's so good
when I saw him, I was like, oh, okay.
It's Marcus.
that line was true. When he, in the book, and to a lesser extent in the movie, he did things. He never gave up, you know, and that was one of his defining characteristics. He couldn't leave stuff alone. He had to do the calculations. He had to do the spacewalk. He really wanted to get on the ship, and that's how dangerous it was on the alien ship. If he could have found a way, he would have done it, but he could. He went back. He saved Rocky after Rocky saved him. Even when, you know, he was fully damaged, and it took a while for him to heal before he could get back to work. And he thought Rocky might have been dead. He tried to save Rocky, even though he doing so was nearly killing him. He he multiple times flew into the face of danger. He, as you said, nearly sacrificed himself or was in danger of doing so, just to save Rocky when he had the chance of going home and saving Earth, which is all anybody had asked him to do. He was possibly the best representative that humanity could have sent in a lot of ways. And I think it's up to us to accept that. It wasn't explicitly said in the book or in the movie.
Yep.
Yeah. I think
that's why
I wouldn't have been that guy. That's all I'm saying. Don't send me.
Yeah, completely. That's why I think.
But he
Carr
also
line,
wasn't that guy. He wasn't that guy when he got on the ship. He wasn't that guy.
I don't know if he wasn't that guy, but I think the important thing was he didn't believe he was that guy.
Yes, that's it. He was that
guy. He always had it inside of
it.
him, but he didn't
Carl
believe
it. Yeah, Strat believed it. Carl believed it. Rocky believed it. The thing is, Ryland Grace didn't believe it. And I don't want to go on a soapbox about this, but I think the teacher part of it makes so much sense to me to bookend it with that, because the ending, first off, when I read the book, I was tearing up in the theater. When I saw that was the cut to black, I was like, thank goodness they did that with the baby Iridians. It was so perfect. But I think the teacher thing adds something else of, you could be, the whole book is about science, technical expertise. So you could play up this idea, he's the best scientist. You can have Strat going, he's the best scientist for this. You can have Carl going, come on, man, do the experiments. You're so good at the science of it all. You can have Rocky saying, wow, humans, great scientist. We good engineers, but you good scientist. But it wasn't about that. It was about being the right person, having the mindset, overcoming the challenges, having the resiliency. You had to have all those qualities to save Earth, and any one of those qualities was lacking, or there was too much self-doubt, and we would have lost. And I think Strat knew the only way we lose is if Ryland doesn't realize who he is. And Carl saying that at the last minute was an incredible piece of dialogue to write, because that just shows me the screenwriter's room knew the story, even the things in the story that were subtext. The things in the story that were not direct lines, because it's easy to adapt a book and just borrow a few lines here and there, fill in the rest, have ChatGPT write it, you're good to go. A line like that shows me there's so much more work being done, because you're getting the subtext right. What Andy Weir's subtext was that was never explicitly said. Strat's like, you're the most brave, courageous person who's going to make a good friend and want to sacrifice yourself for them. That didn't need to be said. That needed to be showed. And it was shown for 2 hours. And it ended in this beautiful scene. And so I just have to say the teacher part of it all shows that to me, because let's say on paper you get the best reviews, you write the best lesson plans, you come up with the best slideshows. That don't mean squat if you walk into the room and you can't build relationships. You can't be a good listener.
Right.
It's not a sage on the stage. It's a guide on the side. That's an old teacher sign.
I haven't heard that in a while. Yeah.
And I think that's an old teacher line. I think Ryland Grace was so good at being the sage on the stage and did not believe that he was the wisdom bearer for these children and how much they looked up to him. They captured with the cameras how much these children are hanging on every word. But to him, he's like, I'm not good enough. I'm a washed up doctoral candidate. Scientists hate me. So it's like, it doesn't matter how good you're doing the things, the technical aspects. If you're not having that reciprocal relationship, learning from each other and growing to believe in yourself and others as a team, you're going to fail the mission every time. And I think putting that in as a teacher, and ultimately why save the Iridians? So the baby Iridians have a future, go back to Earth, save the humans. But there's so much more to it than that. And I think if you didn't have a teacher in that, maybe you wouldn't have cared that much about that other species.
Which is, honestly, I didn't think Ryan Gosling was going to be able to pull that off. But he did.
Perfect.
He did do it.
He did. What's interesting, I just listened to this podcast. Highly recommend listening to Derek Thompson. He does the Plain English podcast on The Ringer. So he had this one about placebos and this idea of, how do placebos work and that kind of stuff. And he referenced this one study about that was done back when you could do any study you want. Now you couldn't you could not repeat this study now. In short, it was this doctor who took rats and put them into water and then timed how long it took them to die.
Oh.
And
you're right.
In the beginning, the rats would swim for about 15 minutes. And then he wanted to see if he could adapt the rats to see if they could go longer. And what he would do is he would take the rat right when it was about like, he would time it to like 14 minutes, 30 seconds. He would take it out, give it a little bit of a breather, put it back in, and he would do that a couple of times. Okay. And initial like hypothesis is like, oh, if we could just double the amount of time, if we could triple the amount of time that, go from 15 minutes to an hour, like that would be amazing. Because then if we could then translate into, turning a human into, all right, you have this within you, you could double your productivity. That's great. Guess how long the rats actually were able to do?
I bet they went forever.
60 hours.
Yeah,
oh my God.
I was gonna say days.
Wow.
They all, and the moral of the study is that the rats always had it in them to survive for 60 hours.
Oh,
they just gave up in the first round.
Okay, this is why
our brains are wired to self-preserve.
Yep.
And to not, like, our default is, I can't do it.
I can't do it.
Right. We can't sustain. And I think that this movie does a great job of showing that, like,
you can rise to the occasion.
Like, everyone has it in them.
Yep.
If you're put in the right situation and you are forced to use those things and rise to the occasion. And like, I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
I like that take. I like that take.
That's
a really good message out of the story. It's funny though. I think it's also a very appreciably human thing that when intellectually presented with, look, you're going to save the world potentially. That's what we're sending you to do. But you're going to die earlier than everybody else. Pretty much everybody on the planet was like, not me. And even the guy best qualified after some people blew up to do it, he was like, I don't want to. I want to teach the children. And I love that she was like, it's not about the children. It's not. You don't have anything.
It's not. Because if it was truly about the children, like she said, if it was truly about the children, you would
get on right now.
Would go.
Yeah, you save them. And the thing is, we know he thought that, right? We know he thought these children are going to be, they're going to go through, some of them are going to go through the worst of it, right? At least in the book, we knew that. Question. Do you think Ryland went home?
So that's also a change from the book, right? They don't mention at the very end that, the Hail Mary is ready to go home.
No.
Right. Yeah.
That's a very big change. And I half spoiled something for Craig in that I said to him on the car ride to the movie, I was like, I saw some rumblings that they made a major change about the ending. And so my mind was going a million places of like, do they return to Erid? Do they even have the school children? Does he get to teach them? I was like, are they going to cut that? But I think what the person meant about the major change was that line that the Iridians are trying to get Rocky's ship back up and running to go back to Earth. So that was such a brilliant line to drop, because a lot of conclusions are drawn when we learn that the Beatles made it to Earth. In the book, I almost like that reveal more. We talked about that, Craig,
too.
I liked in the book,
the sun is fine.
We don't see Strat. All we learn is that the sun is no longer dimming. So it kind of leaves the open-ended question of why. Is it natural? Did the Beatles get through? Did Strat get the information and actually act on it? Here, we get to see Strat on the icebreaker and they're ready to experiment. So it's like, that was another way of showing us the Beatles made it home. And I think because they leaned so heavy into Strat in the first act of this movie, you kind of don't see her for a while, except for the flashbacks. I thought to get to modern day older Strat was a really smart decision visually to actually bring her back in to establish that continuity. But the one thing that missed in the book was that Rocky got to tell Ryland the sun is alive. And I thought that was so important to Rocky to be the one to be the bearer of good news, that it was replaced now with his ship is almost ready. I thought Rocky still got to play that role of going into Ryland's bubble and telling him.
I do think they did a little bit switch it up on us though in the end of the movie, because I think Mike, I think you and I felt the same way. We were like, oh, is Rocky on Earth? So
because Rocky was in the suit, he was in the Xenon suit.
He was in the suit. Other minor beef on the ship when they had the little, not holodeck, but the little screens that showed the environments on Earth. Rocky couldn't see that. He can't see that. He would have needed.
around
He would
it.
have needed. He would have needed the camera
with the device, the pointer
He would have
device
needed the
thing.
camera. I don't know. That's
It translated. They at least okay. Here's a positive spin on that. I could see why that didn't work for you, and it was gimmicky and hand wavy to say, oh, he just carries this little device that translates visuals on a screen into a soundboard, if you will. Sure, it was a little hand wavy, but at the same time, we got Rocky Vision.
Well,
Rocky Vision when I didn't expect it.
I did love that. That worked. That actually looked better in the movie theater than it did in my head. I actually completely appreciated that a lot. I was like, oh, yeah, that works.
Yeah. Rocky Vision, when we saw it, I was like, it's reminding me of those needle boards as a kid where like you put it on your face, you push up the needles and it makes this, and it perfully almost had sound to it. When we were in Rocky Vision, it was like I'm seeing some sonar sound visual, echolocation video. Well done. Hats off on that.
And it was a callback to the beginning of the movie when he's doing he had the mic and he used the sound waves to agitate the sand
almost.
Exactly. There's a science of that. It's the stupid Lord of the Rings Amazon remake that they're doing. The opening sequence is cymatics. That's it. CYMATIC. Cymatics, the science of the sound waves basically affecting natural phenomena. So the fact that they opened with that is cool.
I can't do it. Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. It's a disaster.
Yeah, this is what I heard.
It's a disaster.
Look, this movie I've recommended it several times today. What you guys said about the book holds true in the movie. It is about hope. It is about dedicate. It's not as sweeping as it maybe could have been. I think people were comparing it to Interstellar. I don't know about that. I think the directors did a marvelous job. I
felt like in Interstellar they did a bigger job of putting the stakes for Matthew McConaughey's. I guess because you got to see more of the blight, the cornfields, the sickness. They purposely chose not, because in the book we don't see any of that because we're in space when all that is potentially going on, right? The only glimpse we got of it was the icebreaker, so we're assuming that the Earth is kind of icing over.
Wars.
They leave out the solar panel guy. A company wants to solar panel the Sahara.
South African. Yeah. He's not.
Leave that out. If there's something you're going to cut, that's fine.
Yeah. Solar panel guy Dimitri. I don't know. In place of Dimitri, we got there it is. I think.
Dimitri, was he supposed to be replaced by that the Indian guy? Essentially,
he was. In that opening meeting.
In the meeting, and then he was kind of there throughout, a little bit. Yeah.
I thought they at least captured that there's some humanity on this global council that's about saving the world, and it's like they're going to embrace a quirky, outside the box Ryland kind of dirty looking, disheveled guy, instead of they're just going to be all buttoned up around this table. I thought the fact that guy played the role of a Dimitri who was kind of on the same page as him, I thought at least it was, like I said before, they did just enough fan service that even the things they cut, they had a proper nod to.
Right. They're we understand. You understand the thing. By the way, we were in the theater last night. We were sitting next to a couple, or the couple to my left. And the woman of the couple, you could tell she had read the book. She was reacting to all the stuff, and she'd be like, "Oh, when something was different." And I was like, "Okay." And when we got up, you mentioned something about the voice actor for the audiobook version,
Ray Porter,
and true to form, that's what she did. She had done the audiobook version. You had a theory about the voices spike, at least in a cameo.
I'm really curious if they did it, if they did not do it, why they did not do it. I thought a Ray Porter cameo would have made a lot of sense somewhere. I don't know, contractually, this and that. I was trying to look in the credits because they did credit the failed Rocky voices. Each of the failed Rocky voices that they did.
Was that actually Meryl Streep?
I couldn't.
I think it was.
I don't know. It went by.
I was trying to look. I missed it. But I was wondering if Ray Porter was somewhere on that list because I didn't hear it when they were doing the failed Rocky voices. I'm wondering if they got him anywhere else because he's deserving of all the awards for that audiobook. It should be award winning. It's the textbook example of how to do an audiobook. They even, I think, got an award for sound engineering, the way they did Rocky's voice in the book, because they did a digital voice for him. Everything about the audiobook is best in class. I thought some nod to that would have been nice. So maybe it's in there. It's an Easter egg I haven't seen. But if not, I'm really hoping Ray Porter somehow is getting credit. I do believe he's been on the media tours. Ray Porter definitely did some interviews with people who have been touring for the movie. So at conferences and things, and they give out press interviews and short snippets to all these different outlets. I know he was involved in some of that. So thankfully they're including him on this masterpiece of a story, because the audiobook can't be diminished. And the people next to us, clearly, when I mentioned Ray Porter's name, were all excited to jump in and say, oh my God, he's so good. And the other woman was like, I hope he was in the movie somewhere. I didn't hear him, but I hope they put his voice in.
If you go to the IMDb and the Wikipedia, it says that Ray Porter is one of the other voices of Rocky.
He was great.
There we go.
Yes.
There we go.
I was trying in the moment to listen. I didn't quite, it kind of slipped my mind, but I'm so happy about that.
Well, I cannot wait to watch this movie again.
Oh
yeah, no, that's the thing. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing it with people and then what they think. I do want to see it with people who haven't read the book, though. Just you know, who are going in fresh. You know,
I was going to say, Craig, I think it was one of the first things once we got to the car coming home from the movie. I said to you, I'm really sorry that I recommended the book so hard. No, I pushed the book so hard on Craig. I said, Craig, we're going to go see this movie. You must read it. And you only had like 2 weeks. I was like, dude, read it. And then you had a lot going on. Then I reminded you again. I was like, dude, read it. Whatever you're doing.
You're right.
I feel bad about that now. I
wasn't going to avoid you, but
I feel bad about that now because I loved the book so much that I wanted. My recommendation to you and others was read it first, only so that you can have the moments.
No, but that's the way to do it. That's the way to
learn about astrophage. All of these moments I enjoyed so much as a reader. I wanted people to have that. But here's the crazy thing. Yeah. After seeing the movie, I might change my tune on that, because the reviews that I've seen online who are saying better than Interstellar, because people are saying that best science fiction maybe of all time, definitely the last 50 years. All the people who are saying that, I think, are non-book readers. So I think this movie, probably, if you don't know anything about the story, hits so much harder that I kind of feel bad about pushing the book. I'm glad you had the experience of reading it like I did and enjoying it so much.
No, I really like the book.
I think the people who didn't know the book and saw this movie are having almost a mystical experience, an orgasmic experience in the theater.
Well, I think that's why I want to see it with some people who haven't read the book, because I want to see how they take it. I will say, trying to divorce myself from the book, the portrayal of not just the interaction between the two, but literally Rocky himself, like how they handled the voice, how they handled his human voice, how he got around, how he used stuff, how he fixed things, how he handled that, but also that he was kind of an asshole, in an equal parts to be a foil to Ryland Grace's asshole. I thought that was great. Yeah, you don't need to read the book for that. I think that's totally enjoyable.
So true to Thriller Pod form, we often have a scorecard where we rate and rank the books we read. Let's try to do some version of that. So usually we call it best action sequence, because the spy thrillers we read always have a bunch of action sequences. I don't want to say that here. I just think best sequence, period. Overall, what was your favorite thing that they put on screen to enjoy as a visual feast? So best scene overall.
Okay. I'll say, and this is probably not a popular one, when Strat and Ryland are talking, and then the shockwave comes behind her shoulder, and he doesn't have the chance to say anything before they hit, because we know that moment is coming. We, the book readers, know it's coming, but I really do feel that if you like we were just talking about, if you're not and you come in cold, that the whole tenor of that scene was kind of tender and kind of like they were sort of connecting, and then she's looking at him, still sort of smiling, not knowing that destruction is coming and that like 2 of her crew people 3 days before launch had just blown up. So that was my favorite scene.
That's one of those scenes where I feel bad if you know the book, because I think moviegoers, for that, when it explodes, for when Rocky taps the glass, is this going to be like Alien vs. Predators? Is this the worst thing to ever happen? Is all this going to go south? Is this going to become a horror movie? You just don't know.
Right.
And then the canister, right? Like, was that canister a bomb? Was it going to blow up the ship? Like, being on the edge of your seat in the theater is, to me, as good as I was on the edge of my seat with the book. So I think either book or movie, you're going to have that same feeling. It's just your preference of which one you want to get it for and enjoy it.
Well, I think if you read the book, you knew that moment was coming. You didn't know it was coming right then. So there was a moment you were like, oh, it's happening. If you didn't read the book, you were like, what's happening? This is, like watching a soap opera.
I think when they were getting all soft, I knew it was coming. When they were getting all soft, I was like, oh, okay, boom.
Yeah.
Chris, top scene?
Yeah. Oh, that's tough. I feel like I thought that the scene on Tau Ceti, the big climactic scene was done very well, minus the little bits of which I think they played a little fast and loose with spacewalking and gravity, unlike some other good science fiction movies that I've seen, like Space Odyssey or Interstellar, or even
The
like
Expanse.
Gravity,
The
Expanse. So that was good. I don't know. Ultimately, I think my favorite scene of the book was, or the book. My favorite scene of the movie was the first contact. It's that seeing like what in my mind that conical bridge come down, and he creates that wall with different panels to try to see like which area he can see through, tells him to go back, comes back, and then I felt like Phil and Chris Lord, or Lord and Miller, like did a good job of interjecting their comedic background, and having a slight nod to, like you said, that thriller, horror-esque thing, like with is this guy gonna come at me? But then quickly like turning it on its side and realizing that no, that's not what this is. So to me, like, and that in the book was also like one of the most special moments. Like the first contact of Ryland with Rocky is just is huge. Yeah.
And it really disappointed me that they spoiled that in the frickin' trailer.
The trailers.
See,
agreed.
Okay, so I want to tell you what I told Mike. I went to BlurredCon a few weeks prior. And there was a huge panel, downstairs, advertising this movie. In fact, I realized belatedly they had pre-screened it there for VIP ticket holders. So, I mean, I guess I could have seen it then. But somebody there said, "Oh, don't watch the trailers. They're giving away too much." And I didn't realize at the time the reason they were telling me that is that they saw the movie after having seen the trailers. And they were like, oh, yeah, that was too much. I didn't want to say. They didn't say all that. I just took them at their word. And as a result, like last night when we went, I was like, oh, I haven't actually seen any trailers because I've been avoiding them. And as we were walking there, Mike was like, oh, hopefully, your first take on Rocky will be good, or what you thought, or whatever. And it was. I have to say, I don't know what I was expecting. I mean, I do know what I was expecting, and that was pretty much it. I think I had a different take on the legs for some reason in my head.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, but it all fit together. It all worked. In fact, I know Oscar season is, happening, so we have to wait another whole year. It'll be interesting to see if this movie gets anything for that in particular. The fact that they went with what was largely looked like puppetry, old school Jim Henson, as opposed to
it didn't look CGI. It didn't look CGI.
There probably was
no, it wasn't.
It
wasn't. It largely wasn't.
Yeah,
they did add CGI on a few. It was almost like a CGI overlay on what was actually puppet based, and everything that was a reaction between Ryland and Rocky was the puppet. So even if they would put a CGI overlay or touch up on it, they acted it, and they got Ryan Gosling to act talking to a puppet and interacting with a puppet. There was no green screen done at any point in this film. They had a full on ship. There was not a single green screen moment. And very sparingly did they do full Rocky CGI. Like I think when he's rolling around or jumping around all excited.
Probably.
They cleverly in most scenes cut pieces of his body, mostly the bottom parts of his body,
doing that
for the puppetry. And I think they had 3 people. I think Rocky was animated by a minimum of 3 people. And the main puppeteer was also his voice. So his voice was also the main creator behind the puppet. So
I liked his voice.
That makes it even more impressive. And the voice was great.
It does. Man, that one other thing I wanted to mention, soundtrack, unexpectedly good. I don't know, like I'm not a guy who goes to get the OST or whatever afterwards, but like there was some good music. You know, it fit the scenes, I thought. Yeah, I didn't really think about that going to the theater, but I liked it.
Yeah.
I saw this. The only options were all like premium screens at the Regal. So it was either IMAX, 4DX, which I heard is like crazy. Mike said he saw a movie in 4DX.
No, thank you.
I've heard it's just described as like doing this, the Spider-Man ride at Universal, like just for 2.5 hours.
And then they spray water at you for no reason. Yeah. It's stupid.
And then there was another one where like the screen actually goes onto the sides. It's not IMAX, but it's like a traditional wall, like where it's wall, but then
but it's curved, like you're getting like a fully immersive.
Not curved. It's like straight, and then you actually get scenes on the side, and then finally it's this other one, which is RPE, Regal Premiere Experience. It's just supposed to be a better quality camera screen, and then also the sound, and like the sound in this movie was so intense, and in the theater I'm in, like it's literally shaking my chair, and like I'm, to me this reminds me a lot of Oppenheimer, like the sound in that movie, the sound the sounds in Interstellar, the sounds in a lot of different Christopher Nolan movies. Even F1. I don't know if I saw F1 in the theaters, and like that just won Best Oscar for sound.
Yeah.
I think I really hope, and I guess it doesn't matter because I know Sinners came out like in February last year, and obviously they were
obviously did well. Yeah,
big contention. So it doesn't really matter when the movies come out, but I truly hope that this movie at least makes a lot of nominations for a lot of the below the line, like the craftsmanship, the sound, the engineering, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If not,
I think they can tell you
best supporting actor.
Many awards this one's going to be up for.
He should be the best supporting actor. Rocky is the, I can tell you that one of the trailers, the sound in one of the trailers won an award for the awards that are given out for trailers. So it's already won an award.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Already,
I haven't seen that trailer, but it doesn't matter now. But yeah. So yeah, I hope the same. Really quality stuff.
I mean, because think about it. Like the last, The Martian was nominated for Best Picture.
And this one's better. And this one's, I think way
this
better.
Is just as good as The Martian.
I think so.
If not a little bit better. So
and most of the buzz I'm seeing on socials and reviews,
super high,
the credit score,
the
Rotten Tomatoes, almost everybody's universally saying better than The Martian. Some people are claiming better than Interstellar, and others are claiming best sci-fi story ever put on screen. So I'm just like, there are some hyperbolic things being said, and I think you can make arguments for each of those. I don't think I'd land there, except for it's better than The Martian. But I do have to say, if I didn't know the book, and if people didn't read the book, I think that's an even more valid viewpoint. Because one thing in the book that made me realize, oh, this is different, is that the shoe never dropped. Chris, do you remember when we were reading it? I would text you manically because you finished it first. And I would text you every chapter I read, and I'd go, okay, it didn't happen yet. It didn't happen yet. I was waiting for the turn. I was waiting for the villain. I was waiting for the darkness. I was waiting for the world ending. Somebody rigged the ship, or the Iridians had some bad guy had a trump card and programmed into the ship. There's a hiding Iridian who's going to kill everybody, and humanity's dead. I was waiting for the Dark Forest moment, and the fact that it never came. No, I was. Chris, if you find those texts,
I should share those texts.
Those texts were absolutely wild. And then when it doesn't come, and this is just a heartfelt, good-natured story
it's heartwarming.
The best of our species meets the best of their species and solves a problem and creates these bonds. that was so refreshing. And so your typical movie theater goer who's already caught up with Armageddon, science fiction, world's ending, probably already has personally in their life whatever traumas going on, as we all do,
or
to go into the theater,
all of this,
start to finish, and walk away without having a villain, without having a through and through villain, is so incredible. To tell a story like this without a bad guy, I love it.
The bad guy is Astrophage.
No,
right? And
no, it isn't.
No, it isn't. They're not.
No, it isn't.
They're not the bad guys.
Not at all.
Astrophage is just trying to live.
They're trying to live. They're trying to survive. They're hurting us, but they're not villains.
Yeah. In fact, they're out, as we learn, they're out of their environment, right?
Life eats life.
Right.
If you tell the story from the perspective of grass and plants and trees, I could tell you a little something about villains. So it's just like the astrophage is that.
We're the villains to like most of the environment, right? So
although I thought it was funny, you know what? Now you're making me think about the environmentalists, the climate scientists in the book, who was like, his biggest contribution in the end to saving the world was to cause more of what he was trying to prevent. I don't know, little stuff like that.
The South African guy,
who wants to tile the Sahara.
I think it was French. Yeah. Or the South African guy, who's in prison. They have to break him out of prison because he wrote in with an idea, and then he was like, "We'll just tile over the Sahara," which okay.
Him.
Yeah.
That has huge ramifications in terms of
There's a book coming out by Michael Pollan, who is so great talking about plants and whatnot. And this one's about consciousness. And a big part of why he decided to write a book on consciousness, as Chris can tell you, I've been obsessed with for the last number of months, is because he had an experience on psychedelics, and he witnessed plant emotion and feeling, and he was communicating with plants. And what if their consciousness is just on another realm with a different sense of time? So what looks like completely non-animated, low level of life to us is actually part of another world, whereby they're just on another space-time spectrum that we can't understand. And so one of a very established authors of biology, plant science, dietary, recommendations of the history of food, basically, is now writing a book on plant consciousness. And I'm just like,
okay, all right. So set that aside for me, because I'm actually interested in getting into that.
Not that I'm recommending him, but listen to the Rogan episode. So he was just on Rogan, and you get to hear from Pollan for a couple hours talk about all this. So it's really good.
All right. You're making me remember the discussion that Rocky and Ryland had about, hey, why do we have the same level of intelligence? Why do we hear at the same frequency? Why, and then Rocky's kind of like, well, we're here to meet each other because we're at the same level of whatever. If we were more advanced, we'd have fixed astrophage. If we were less advanced, we couldn't be here. And actually, even that, Rocky's people barely got into space. They didn't know about radiation. They didn't know about time dilation. They couldn't see the stars or the planets They couldn't, perceive them that way until they got into space. They were just in a big hurry, which is why the ship maybe, some things didn't work. But that discussion about the optimal zone for, communication with an alien life form that is sentient. That was an interesting exchange that didn't happen in the movie because there wasn't time. It was interesting, but there just wasn't time.
That's similarly, and I think, again, there might have been a nod to it, but the panspermia of it all. I remember hitting a point in the book where I go, holy crap, are we related to Iridians? Was life basically populated from a panspermia event of, we're related to astrophage, on some molecular biological evolutionary reason? Could that be an explanatory reason for evolution, and then ultimately why we are similar to other planets in other galaxies? Is it possible?
So I'm gonna tell you a thing. I don't know how much time we have going through this, but Mike, I am using AI to create terrariums. And Chris, what I mean by that is I have set a set of rules along with the AI that I'm working with to govern a set of planets, a set of different worlds, and kind of work from geologic time up through like, I don't know, the industrial age of one of the species on the planet, and then they're in the same system. They don't know about each other yet. They're evolving separately. But one of the things I've actually thought about a lot and I was reminded of while reading the book and then after watching the movie, was the idea of like, well, if these systems are connected, they're in different times, like one died out before the other came, but there is sort of a connection between them. I had to make a decision. Is there going to be a common source of life? How did it happen? How did, this kind of thing. And yeah, there's a lot of, not that they're going to do this, and I don't know fanfic or whatever is going to happen involving this movie or this book, but if it did, there's a lot of space to fill. You can actually talk about what happens on Earth, or what happens when the Iridians and humans meet. What happens when the Iridians get really look at the thinking machine and figure it out, like what's going to, they've leapt forward in technology.
One other part of that Chris, I think it was you and I talking about last night, and no way you could put this in the movie. It would have been a mistake. But the thrum at the end of the book,
I love that idea.
I love the idea in the book, but it only works in a book. It really only works in a book.
It does. I wish I don't know. They could have shown something.
To see it happen would have been cool. To see
there was a couple things in the book that I think that just are a little bit weird.
Yes.
That for us nerds, like, we loved it.
Yep.
Or at least I did, speaking as a nerd. But, there's just some things that you gotta,
it works in the head, not on the screen.
That's a fanfic. That's a fanfic opportunity, because now that we know what Iridians look like, take the description Andy Weir wrote of the thrum, and now have AI basically create what Iridians look like, and then put it with the thrum description. Because I'm just envisioning this almost like Congress, almost looking like Star Wars in the Senate.
With Palpatine,
these different pods, and they're all there, and they're all moving, and they're all gesticulating. Like, imagine a flock of birds, right?
Or like a beehive.
When birds all have that beehive movement together, and now all these Iridians are doing it, and it's creating a mind meld that is consciously actually problem solving, right? Because they're not scientists. They don't understand science. They require a mind meld, kind of otherworldly, mystical experience. I just see them all vibrating and gesticulating, like, and that's how they not necessarily critically think, but that's how they absorb, knowledge, or they absorb reasoning, and are able to draw conclusions to ultimately be scientific. That whole thing blew my mind, when I probably described it completely wrong, but that's what I took away from it.
No. That's a good way to look at it.
What a cool concept.
It is. So there's a lot of avenues.
Too
trippy for the movie. Too probably, and they're probably not going to expand this. I mean, it's a movie that, like, you watch it, you feel good. You can take your grandma to see it because nothing untoward happens. Which is another reason, by the way, the movie's going to probably continue to do well. Everybody can go.
I think kids can go. People that aren't into science can go.
With the money they're making and the way this industry works, I'd give it another 2 months before you hear about Project Hail Mary 2, the sequel.
Before they start,
which would be a terrible decision, but
it's
the
a terrible
way
idea.
These producers, they're so damn
on the
greedy,
order of
they just see it as a cash cow if it's going to have that big a success. Interstellar
Ryland 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo. No, man, I like this. I like this movie. I think I'm going to give it a. I'm going to give it an A. A? Solid A.
All right. I'm going to give it an A minus. I wanted because there are things that I want, even outside of knowing the book. But I think everything was well organized, and more importantly, and I think we just talked about it. It's extremely accessible and enjoyable. It's just a very enjoyable film, and God knows we could use more of those right now. So
yeah, I can't agree more with those takes. I think I do settle with an A minus, and I do have to say, if I didn't read the book, I think it would be an A plus. I'm really glad. I'm glad for people who haven't seen the book or are going to go in with everything I loved most about the book and why the book's an A plus. And and people are going to be allowed to have that experience in a theater and get that A plus level experience. The only A minus for me is that I'm going into it with a critical lens, and I had hoped it has me drop all that at the door, just leave my baggage behind. And unfortunately, there was just enough wiggle room for me to come in and say, oh, this, oh, that. And that was a little disappointing. The one other area I'll say is, Chris, you picked your favorite scene was the action sequence, because there really only was one. That was the number one time I was taken out of the film, only because I'm thinking of science, gravity, where they are, how's this planet? And then also, again, it was the book thing of the book had the time to explore this. And what Andy Weir did so well was that anything he was writing, he was making the audience feel, I feel, physically. Right. So the tediousness of making the chain to go down and harvest the Talmiba, that chain was just like, holy shit, I feel for these dudes. Like, this is months of their life, hours and hours. And instead you just go, I Rocky, I make chain done, 5 kilometers long. Let's go harvest Talmiba. I'm like, I see why you had to do that. But it took me out of the movie to be like, oh, damn, that's weak. And then similarly, when Rocky just fell asleep and all of a sudden it's like, oh, he'll regenerate. So let me do things around the ship. Let me play housemaid and clean up.
He's fine.
And I'm just like, no, like, Rocky's fucking dying, like possibly dead or just going to magically recover.
He thought he might die, but he was also like, I got to get to work. So,
and the one thing, Craig, you and I talked about was that possibly could have been Ryan Gosling in denial, right? Rocky might die. He's in a heap over here. I'm just going to let that be because I can't handle it right now. Like, emotionally,
because there's nothing I can do about it right now.
I think that would have been a proper read on the scene too, but still just disappointing that Rocky's sacrifice to break out of the Xenonite on page cut me to my core. It cut me down.
Yeah.
It hurt me. It pained me. And instead the movie just goes, give him a few minutes. He'll wake up. Give him a smell and salt. I was just like, oh, come on. So I would have gone straight A+ if there weren't a few of these tiny little things which allowed me to criticize.
But as you say, that is movie baggage, right? Or sorry, book baggage, right? If we didn't know, we'd be like, okay, he's got to save their civilization. So he's got to get to work.
So for my favorite scene though, which potentially could push it up to an A. So I'm going to stick with the A-, but what's flirting with me going to an A is the first third of the film. After he wakes up from the coma, because I was only so on that. After that, though, the sequence of Strat getting him at school, and then him and Carl and their adventures. There's my winner, my favorite sequence. Testing the astrophage, the adventures of Carl and Ryland, bowling in the Home Depot, making light of this whole world-ending astrophage thing of, we only have 3 dots, oh my God. And then they move off Petri dish, and he finds them on the light.
Right.
Put a box in a box. Carl, put a box in a box. The Carl Ryland sequence to me was the best.
That was an inspired edition. Agreed.
Exactly. Agreed. The best. And what's great is people who don't know the book also now have like an encyclopedia to go back to, because all these things we talked about being cut, you go back to the book, it's almost like the expanded universe of Project Hail Mary.
Well, I mean,
the book was the original source material, but now it looks like expanded universe to the movie's canon.
Yeah. I hope people do that.
I really hope people watch this movie and then they're like, I want to read the book.
And listen to the audiobook.
And
and listen to the audiobook.
Please. Ray Porter, such a good job.
Yeah.
Anything else on the table?
I think we went almost as long as the movie, guys.
Yeah, sorry. I in particular had opinions, but
we were like you guys did. We were like rats in a bucket. Every time we ran out of steam, something else just gave us reason to keep going.
60 hours. Good.
You give those rats some cocaine, they would have went for years.
Wow, this movie was 2 hours and 36 minutes.
Yeah,
did not feel like 2 hours and 36 minutes.
Was it 2.5 hours? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're right. It didn't. It did not.
Do you think there'll be an extended edition?
It's like they don't make DVDs anymore. You know how you used to be able to buy DVDs and it had so many deleted scenes.
Yeah.
Interviews with authors and shit, or not authors, but interviews with actors and stuff like that.
Now what you can do is tease that to a streaming service or something, right? To like give them a leg up.
Do they do that though? They don't do that. What? Well,
no.
Maybe that's another podcast, but I have questions like, why don't they do that? I would buy that.
Although seems like
physical media is for it. DVDs are making a comeback.
They're collectors. Yeah, there are people
because now and they're way more expensive than what I what I used to buy. Go to Walmart that was my favorite thing to do on Black Friday was to go to Walmart and pick up. They had $3 Blu-rays, $5 Blu-rays, $10 Blu-rays, and like, you know,
the margins on them have to be incredible.
But now, like,
$60,
people are searching for the best pressings, like the quality of, like, because, you know, I'm sure all those ones that I bought at Walmart were like, they're not the best, you know, quality in terms of what I could watch.
That wasn't the
that wasn't the point. But now it's like, all right, how good someone can, like, you know, rip, or I don't know how they do it, but like, you know, like back in the day making a vinyl, right? How good the quality is of that transfer.
But you have to have the player too, and I feel like with streaming, so many fewer people are having the actual hardware to play it. That's going to be a niche thing that can generate a kind of niche subset, but you're not going to mass market it anymore. So
I mean, it's just like vinyls, right?
But do they have a business interest?
Have,
right, exactly.
You know, record players, and it's but even with CD, because you can't buy a CD anymore.
Can't buy, exactly.
You either digitally buy it. People don't even digitally buy music anymore. People just
don't get me started, because
have a streaming service. You don't actually own anything.
No,
seriously,
it can be taken away from you at any point.
This is the we don't, and we're poor for it. I don't actually know. You didn't ask me to talk about this. I'm going to talk about it. But I don't actually know how to support my favorite artists now. Right? Like, I have to go to a concert. Album
was a statement.
Right. You bought an album.
I'm financially supporting you. I'm happy.
Right.
I want to own a piece of your content.
Look. Even back in the day, I knew that buying an album still, while it supported a little bit, really the artists made their money back on tour. But now even a lot of artists are, one, it's hard to catch tours. Two, there's some artists who aren't coming where I am, even though I live in a major metropolitan area. Three, you know, I can listen to their.
It's like $2,000.
It's like exactly. Yeah.
That's the other thing. Like, getting to a concert is just. It's not like it used to be. Yeah.
Craig, we're going to have you back on our second podcast called Showing Our Age and Showing Our Hairlines.
Dude, I'm trying to accept it gracefully. That's just like, you know, I swear I went into the pandemic with full actual head of hair. I don't know.
And now it's time for the segment, How Many Grays Do You See?
This was great.
Yes, the alien.
A lot of fun.
We gotta have you back on more often, Greg. This is good.
Yeah. Well, you know where to find me, literally. So.
Yeah, I do.
Oh man.